am Heather Morgan, and I'm here today with Sales Folk and Sales for Startups, talking to Ilya Lichtenstein, the co-founder and CEO of MixRank, a Y Combinator-backed startup that does automated sales prospecting for B2B companies and other companies as well. Hi, Ilya.
Hi.
Thanks
Hey,
for
Heather. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for talking with us today. So my first question for you is, how were you able, as a startup, to get over $1 million in revenue in your first year with very little people on board with your sales team and your company overall?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, what we started doing right in the very beginning of the company was we were building a self-serve SMB focused digital advertising tool. And that wasn't really growing as quickly as we'd liked. And we saw that a lot of very big companies were interested in our product. And so we decided to switch to a more traditional SaaS inside sales model where now we're not allowing any self-serve signups. We're letting people sign up and become our customers only after we talk to them, and so on. And so we made that switch. We had to very, very quickly build a sales process and put together all of the systems for getting repeatable, consistent sales in a very, very short time and with a very small staff. So we only had one person that was doing sales full time and no SDRs, no account managers, any of that stuff. And so,
Wow.
yeah, and so the way that we were able to do that is by being very, very efficient and looking for leverage wherever we could find it, and then using automation and various different, both very efficient processes and also
So,
technology.
so what were some of the things that you automated that people don't usually automate that saved you a lot of time and was able to get your resources to stretch much further?
Yeah, so the way that we came about building our sales process is that we broke it out into steps, step by step. So assuming you have nothing, you have no inbound marketing, you have no leads, what are the steps that you need to take to get to customers? And so first you have prospecting or identifying which companies you're going to be going after that would be a good fit for your product. Then you're going to identify and contact the decision makers at those companies. Then you're going to show those decision makers your product and do a demo and set up a trial. And then you're going to follow up with them and talk to them and close them. And so each one of those steps, you can then think about, well, what is very time consuming or what is very tedious or what is very repetitive that potentially could be done more effectively by technology. So, for example, if you're a sales guy, you are probably sending a lot of emails every day that are very, very similar to each other, so kind of the same template.
Mm-hmm.
And so what you can do is set up some kind of mail merge process to automatically send out hundreds of emails. Another thing that is very, very tedious and takes up a lot of time is finding the right people to contact and then finding their contact info. And so we built a bunch of technology to automate finding those contacts and getting email contacts. Another thing that we've done to kind of get a lot of leverage and multiply our efforts as a small startup is things like webinars or videos where now you still have the experience of someone, a live person that's actually doing a demo and showing the product, but that person is now speaking to potentially 50 or 100 different people that then can go into the sales call.
So, the webinars that you mentioned, what were some of them and how did you promote them? What were the results you saw from those?
Yeah, so in the early days, as far as our inbound sales, webinars and videos were by far the strongest channel, like way more effective than pretty much anything else that we tried. And what we did as far as the content is we followed a pretty simple formula in that we take a task or a problem that our product or our software addresses, or a problem that we solve, and we create content that is about 80% very educational and instructional. And so you could say, well, here is a way to solve this problem that you have. Here's a way to get customers or do inside sales or do certain kinds of ad campaigns or whatever. So 80% purely instructional, informational, really good, high quality content. And then the tail end of the webinar is very simple, just for a few minutes. Now you understand sort of what the process is. Here's how our product or our software automates it, makes it. Yeah, the call to action, and just demonstrating, well, here's how we can make this much easier for you. And the reason that's so effective is that we've spent the bulk of the webinar basically building trust and building credibility, and not just producing valuable content, but also showing, well, we're really expert at solving this problem for you. We know what we're doing. And so our product will be similarly very effective for you.
I think the other reason why that's also effective is because whether you realize it or not, you're actually making their pain point much more real. And by offering a solution that's probably much harder and more complicated than the solution your product offers, even though you're giving them something helpful, it's also making them realize their pain in a very real way, where they're thinking, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that, or I could just use MixRank kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not that we go out of our way to make the alternative seem very painful, but it just is usually, exactly. Especially with kind of very sophisticated and complicated processes. And so the other thing that does, by the way, as far as qualifying and targeting, is that all of the people that just sat through 30-40 minutes of talking about this issue, by the time they get to the end, are going to be really motivated to try your product, because it's clearly a very urgent, pressing problem for them. And on that note, the one thing that I think a lot of startups could do to really become much more effective at sales, if I had to pick one thing, it would be to sell to the right people and really very aggressively pre-qualify your leads and have all of your prospects be very self-selecting. Basically, somehow structure your process to become a very strong and strict filter for who ends up talking to your salespeople. Because if you have a very finite resource of the time of your salespeople, especially as a small team, then you want to make sure that every single person they're talking to is a potential sale and is really qualified. And when you have content that sort of serves as the gatekeeper to your sales team, or you have some kind of investment from the prospects, then the ones that are willing to make that investment, so I mean an investment of time in watching your webinar and talking to you, those are going to be much more likely to convert for you. And so one of the biggest things that we did was to get really smart and very systematic about who our product would be a really good fit for and who would be the most valuable for, and making sure that our salespeople are talking to them.
How did you actually do that? I mean, everyone talks about doing that, and it's obviously something really important to do, but other than obviously looking at the analytics of who's buying and who's not buying and who's giving us better revenue than others, how do you actually do that, and how did you do that?
Well, I actually don't think everyone's talking about that. I think everyone should be talking about that, but in a lot of sales teams, the incentives and the goals are often really screwed up. And so especially at the beginning of the funnel, where maybe it's not even your commission salespeople, but it's your sales development reps or your marketing or demand gen people even that are engaging with prospects. They're not trying to filter that list the most. They're trying to get the most number of demos or the most number of calls or whatever on the board, rather than filtering it down so that you have a smaller absolute number but probably more closed deals. But to answer your question about how we did it, so part of this will obviously come with data and with really, really good tracking of your sales pipeline. So you're going to see over time patterns as when you very, very clearly segment your leads and track them all the way through the funnel, and you'll see, okay, well, this kind of company or people from this kind of company consistently drop off or they don't close. Or maybe if you're thinking even more sophisticated analytics, you might think, okay, well, the sales cycle for a particular industry is much, much shorter than for another industry. So that's one part. The other thing that we did is, because we did have a freemium product, at least back then when we were getting started, where people could sign up and use it, we could actually use that information, and it doesn't have to be product usage. It could be things like engagement with your content or your newsletter or whatever, and just try to create cohorts and somehow not just segment all of our leads on simple things like the size of the company or the revenue or whatever, but actually create different buyer personas based on their role, based on the industry that they're in, based on how they interact with you. And you'll kind of see that there's certain personas where they're just going to be a lot easier to sell to, and they're going to be a lot more motivated to try out your product, and they'll be more responsive to your salespeople and so on. So you just have to collect as many different signals or data points as possible, and then just start looking for patterns.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, moving on to a little bit different topic, I know that you are an expert with using LinkedIn for lead generation. So I was wondering if I could get some of your thoughts around that and a few tips maybe.
Yeah, definitely. So LinkedIn is a fantastic prospecting tool for outbound sales. And in fact, you don't really need to be paying for most of the premium features. You could pretty much do everything you need with a free LinkedIn account. And the trick to being really, really effective with LinkedIn is being very, very targeted and focused, but at the same time comprehensive. So if we think very quickly about your typical outbound sales process and the numbers that are involved with all the different stages of your sales funnel, if I'm just starting with cold outreach and cold prospecting, as a rule of thumb, to get one sales call with a qualified person, I might need to contact 30 or 50 even people to get one demo. And so if you have a salesperson, in order to keep that salesperson occupied, just one salesperson, you're going to have to be somehow uncovering hundreds of prospects per week in order to keep them busy and keep them productive. And so if we are using LinkedIn, that means that we can't get very, very narrow and very limited. So very, very simply, if we're searching for people on LinkedIn, if we, let's say we are targeting people that have a particular title that we're interested in, say we're targeting marketing or like digital advertisers or something, maybe we're targeting digital ad buyers. If I just search by the title on a free LinkedIn account, I'm limited to 100 results. And that's it. That's all I'll get. And in order to be really effective, you want to get thousands of results. So there's a variety of different ways to do that. So one way to do it might be to first put together a list of target accounts or companies that you're going to be reaching out to. So LinkedIn has a company directory. So same thing, you can get lists of a few hundred companies. Then each one of those, search for people with that title at each one of those companies. That gives you more results. Another thing that you would want to really get good at is learning Boolean search. So that's the and, not, or keywords.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, really, really powerful because you can search for
It's all
any kind of.
about slicing the search. So if you only have like 100 and you have 1,000 different people you want to see, how can you slice it to show all of them,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And yeah, exactly. So if you just do a search on LinkedIn, you might have thousands of results that you know are out there that meet your criteria, but you're only going to be able to see 100 at a time for any given search. And so what you can do is combine all of these different keywords and use the Boolean ones, so things like the negative keywords like not. So, for example, say you are interested in targeting all people that are uh, marketing or media buyers. You might search for the title media buyer, and then you might search for media buyer and director. So that's all the people that are directors. And then your next search might be media buyer, not director. So everyone else. Now you probably have 200 results. So if you think of it as a Venn diagram, you target both parts of both circles, and you can kind of keep going through and keep getting more and more targeted and building these different lists. And there's a whole range of things that you can do to search on there. So, for example, most people don't know this, you can search for any of their skills as a keyword. So if you really have that buyer persona, if you think, okay, well, what are their skills? So if you're targeting media buyers, maybe there's a particular kind of software that a lot of them use that they're skilled at. They put in their profile as a skill. Maybe there's a particular kind of process or training that they've done, or some kind of certification that they've done that could be a keyword in their profile that you could search for. And all of these different things. Maybe you can search by location and try putting in different locations of keywords and get that. So it is kind of tedious and repetitive, and it's something that you probably don't want your commission salespeople doing. You probably want either some kind of sales development or research team, or interns, or even maybe an outsourced team that you hire through Odesk or Freelancer or something to do. But the big picture is that you want a really, really big list of leads that are still targeted, but that covers as much of the possible universe of potential prospects for you.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you, Ilya. Can you tell me a little bit more about MixRank so the people listening know what MixRank does and what it can do for them?
Yeah, so a lot of what MixRank is now is sales automation tools that we built for ourselves, and we then worked into our product. So we've built an automated prospecting tool that pulls in all sorts of different data from different data sources to help sales teams find really relevant customers. So we start off with a database of millions of companies, and then we get more information about them that you can filter on. So, for example, what keywords they match, even down to specific keywords on their website, what technologies or other products they use, what the titles of people at those companies are, all these different data points. And what we've built that we've used very, very successfully internally and are now starting to roll out is this customer discovery platform where we can use big data and use all these different data sources to help you discover the prospects that are most likely to become your customers.
And so, how do you do that in short?
So it's all based on building really sophisticated web crawlers to crawl a lot of different publicly available sources of information. So things like websites, business directories, social profiles, all these different data sources, and then just combining them in really, really intelligent ways to just filter down this big set of companies to the ones that are the most relevant.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ilya. I really appreciate that. And I'm Heather Morgan with Sales Folk and Sales for Startups, and this is Ilya Lichtenstein from MixRank. You can check out their website at mixrank.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
This video has been brought to you by Sales Folk and Sales for Startups. Visit us at salesfolk.com and salesforstartups.org. Thank you.